For me, it's been more mission driven and passion driven. It's something I started and something I enjoy. And I feel that a big part of it is about making impact in the insurance industry. And because we're focusing on the community, there are other things we plug in and support the efforts of others that are, helping advance the insurance industry either through innovation and technology or talent is another big area where I personally try to play. There's a lot we're doing to help the future of insurance. Yeah. Hi, this is Stacey Brown from InsurTech Hartford, and this is the future of insurance.
Stacey, it's really good to sit down with you. I can't remember exactly what the jacket that you got at the symposium last year was, but it's like the OG of InsurTech or I don't think it's granddaddy. I don't think you're quite old enough for that, but something to that effect, right? Was it OG?
It was the Godfather of InsurTech.
Godfather, yes. Okay. You could be a young Godfather. That's fair. Like it doesn't mean you have to be old.
That's right.
Well, it is great to sit down with you. It struck me the other day, it's like, why have I not had Stacey on yet? It's sort of like, if he's the Godfather, you should have been like one of the first. So apologies that it took this long to have you on the show, but welcome.
Well, thanks. I guess Godfather is something, you had to earn over time or something. So,
yeah.
Well, but yeah, we've known each other for a number of years. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe that's all it is.
You don't want to get on my bad side.
Right. Exactly. So for those who don't know, tell us about you and you mentioned InsurTech Hartford, which is almost a misnomer at this point. So I want to get into that whole story, but let us know like you, but also what is InsurTech Hartford and sort of how did your story lead to the creation of that before really anything?
Yeah, no, like most people that start talking about their insurance journey, I didn't set out to be in insurance, but it was 2001. I had gotten laid off as a software developer for the second time post .com crash. And I was just looking for work. And I had a friend at Travelers at the time that had just gotten in there because we both lost jobs at the prior company when it went out. And he said, send me your resume. And they're hiring. I sent my resume. And next thing I knew, I started there the week of Thanksgiving. And I'll never forget when it was because I went for orientation and the guy running orientation said, you are all the smartest people. You're starting this week, you're gonna get paid for a full week, but you're only gonna have to work 3 days. And that was like my introduction to corporate life, right? I was so used to the entrepreneur, smaller startup type of work that I was like, oh yeah, you know what? That you mention it, we do have holidays, right? But anyways, I started Travelers
you'd be hustling through the holiday, like it didn't even occur to you probably that you're about to have all these days off.
That's how things go in entrepreneur land. So, but yeah, I was at Travelers till 2008 when a bunch of people I had known had started to leave and go over to Excel because Excel was kind of consolidating and building their own IT team. And I stayed there until just last year. And back in 2017, I was, part of doing the research for Excel's digital team at the time and trying to figure out like how do we respond to all this money going into startups and what's it going to mean for us. And I started thinking like, hey, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the .com days, right? So I somehow want to be a part of this and I didn't know how to, so I just started getting people together I knew in and around Hartford where we have a lot of insurance presence. And after at that point 15 years in the industry, I kind of knew a lot of people. And it just kept growing from there. And what started out as networking events is now a big annual conference. What started out as just weekend hackathons is now a global innovation challenge. And so all these things just kind of kept growing. And last year, I got to the point where it was decision time, right? Yeah. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to focusing on the entrepreneur side. And so as you kind of mentioned too a little bit earlier, InsurTech Hartford is what I started, but you got to come up with something new, right? Because it's not just InsurTech Hartford. I'm a part of InsurTech Chicago, InsurTech Atlanta, and soon we're going to be launching the InsurTech New England event. In group, and we're going to be running our event in Boston on the 28th of February this year. So, it's kind of really just grown and expanded.
Yeah. You're definitely having an Apple computer becoming Apple moment. It's like that Hartford was fine. Like that's where the background comes from. And now you're broadening out and touching other areas. You do a bunch of stuff. I mean, you just got back from a ski trip in Europe with InsurTech New York. So you got partnerships with some of the other communities as well. It is, I've been having been in New England, and I had an office in Farmington, Connecticut for years. So driving through Hartford for like forever. Hartford has been this hub of insurance activity. And what we find so often is places that are known for the core industry sometimes miss the boat for where the industry is about to move, and to get that chance to stay, central in the discussion for the future of that industry. And so I give you a lot of credit for kind of being that catalyst to keep Hartford, like Hartford's name is very much still in the conversation when it comes to innovation in the industry, because I mean, you were the first. There were none of these like regional insurtech groups, or people didn't even know what the word was or how many E's it might or might not have. But that's still a debate. But I think ITC is the only one who's holding on to the extra E at this point. But yeah, I mean, your pitch nights, competitions, the symposium is huge. I went last year. I'm going this year. Fantastic. It was just like 1,000 people there or something. It was awesome. So kudos on all that you built out, and more so for expanding it, because there's things going on in other cities. So you started with Atlanta and Chicago last year?
Right. Yeah. Chicago was the first, outside event, outside of Hartford event that I did in February, and it was just like networking only. We went to this place called Spin Chicago, which is like a bar with ping pong tables. So
Okay.
we thought that might be interesting. The funny thing was, nobody played ping pong the whole night. I tried to get it started. Nalay Doshi, who is the boots on the ground person in Chicago helping build this community. He and I picked up paddles and we started trying to play to see if others would follow along. It never happened. So needless to say, we probably won't be trying that again anytime soon. But then we had a couple other events throughout the year, and they're very well attended, lots of great energy. Atlanta, our first event was in April, I believe, last year. We only did 2 events, and it was, both of them have been networking only, but we're planning our next event for March 12th, which should have more of like a content component to it, with a panel and stuff like that.
Good. Well, I know, I'm based in Boston, and I worked at an insurer in Boston. I worked at an InsurTech in Boston. I've done advisory work with InsurTechs in Boston for years now. And I've always sort of been longing for why there isn't more of a connection here. And sometimes there are events, and there's a community here, but I work with InsurTech New York and Hartford, and these other groups that clearly have more of an ongoing, regular, deep engagement with their community, and then expanding it out to bring the whole world into their area. And I feel like for the amount of concentration of insurance and InsurTech people and activity in Boston, and investors as well, it's shocking to me that we haven't had anything. So when you reached out about the idea with InsurTech New England and asked if I wanted to be involved, it's like, yeah, I've been waiting for this moment. I've just been on the side of the party the whole night, waiting for someone to ask me to dance. But it's about time. So I'm super excited. So what's going on the 28th? And of course I'm playing dumb, but I'll be there and already know. But I want you to share with everyone, what is the event itself, and what are we trying to catalyze for the community in New England?
Well, a first event is always a little bit of let's see what turns up. So it's really hard to make too many predictions, but we're starting with some content. In fact, we've got this amazing opening speaker. His name's Bryan Falchuk, and he's an author. He does this Future of Insurance podcast and other things with PLRB. So he'll give the theme for the night is about modernizing a legacy industry and the challenges around it. So we're working right now on putting the final list of panelists together so we can have a panel discussion. We want to mix it up between legacy systems people from the big insurers, as well as some of the newer emerging insurtechs, and kind of make it a dynamic conversation. And I think it's the market test, right? It's the go-to-market test, and we're going to see. I'm sure the energy is going to be strong. I agree with you about the community that's up there in Boston. It's been it's actually one of the older named communities, but hasn't been very active since pre-pandemic. I
Yeah.
think I've seen like once a year event happening right now. Um, and so I think this is an opportunity to be more continuously and engaging and ongoing. And where it could lead is a lot of it has to do with the community. And you mentioned about other communities that have been started by others across the country, and there are many, and everybody has kind of different reasons and different goals behind
Yeah.
why they do what they do. Obviously Tony and David down in New York, their focus is on being investors and trying to create deal flow for their fund, and they're doing a great job with that. And out in Columbus or Ohio, you have Andrew and Michael doing lots of great work, but they're a big part of that of what they do focuses on the talent pipeline in Jobs
Yeah.
Ohio.
Yeah.
So for me, it's and they do a great job. They have an interesting model. It's InsurTech Ohio, and they run events in like 3 different cities, right?
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus. So for me, it's been more about more mission driven and passion driven than maybe even it should be. But it's something I started and something I enjoy, and I feel that a big part of it is about making impact in the insurance industry. And this year was the first year where we put together our impact summary document for 2023, where we kind of sat down and said, these are all the things we did either, within our local community or for the industry. And it was, it wasn't like a Bible in length, but it was probably about a dozen pages long.
Yeah.
We had a lot of things that, because we're focusing on the community, there are other things we plug in and support the efforts of others that are helping advance the insurance industry, either through innovation and technology or talent is another big area where I personally try to play, whether it's at the university level, even at the high school level. Last summer, I helped out with an actuarial boot camp for high school students, and there's that's a part of what makes Hartford special as an insurance community. Is insurance is there's a whole infrastructure around the industry, from some of the top university programs, like the UConn School of Law offers the most insurance specialization courses in their law programs than any other university in the country. And we have InsurTech Venturing as accredited course shared between University of Connecticut and University of Hartford, and I get involved in that as well. So there's a lot we're doing to help the future of insurance, so it goes beyond just the next event. And I think that's what people see a lot of, right? Because we have to rely on promotion and marketing so that people have awareness, and hopefully they'll come out and plug in and join us. But there's a little bit going beyond just bringing people together for an event.
Yeah, you definitely the word community. I mean, we talk about these things as communities or regional communities, but the community engagement and involvement that I've seen from your organization is really clear. And like Governor Lamont and others from the state at the symposium last year, he was hilarious and fantastic. But I think to your point, you mentioned these programs at the schools, in the community, other groups in Hartford and Connecticut more broadly. That model, I think, it is how we need to think about this as sort of an economic development question, but for our industry. And it also means we all have to be involved. So you mentioned with these other hubs that you've set up or regions, it's not just you going there planting a flag and saying, now I'm taking over the city. It's who from this community wants to be involved and be a part of this. And so it is sort of like, it's a chance for us to proactively choose to support where our industry is going, get involved in these events. There's more of like a grassroots and sort of personal engagement to it, which I know we're all busy, but I also know that we complain about the same things holding our industry back. So it's like, well, if we want it to change, here's one of the mechanisms by which we can actually try to affect some of that change. So I think it's a great model, and another geography opening up for folks to get involved with up here in Boston and into New England. We got insurers in Maine and Vermont and Connecticut, and it's more than just and Rhode Island, and there's other parts of New England that have activity going on, and we should be engaging them. Stacey, before I let you go, I would love to hear about the symposium. Selfishly, to hear any thoughts about this year, and like I'm excited to go down and be there for it. But anything on your mind that kind of frames up what do you think the themes are or the positioning for? Like if someone's saying, should I go to this? When is it? Where is it? And what is the focus of the symposium, or what would someone get from being there?
Well, every year, this is going to be our fourth large in-person conference. We did a couple, virtual ones during the pandemic, which actually helped our audience build more globally. But for this year, each year we grow and we learn from the years before. So I think one of the big differences this year is the heavy concentration in our programming and the way we've structured it. I go to a lot of conferences myself from other organizers, and I started to realize, what people are kind of getting bored from the talking head panels all day. And, and some conferences are starting to have like a dozen tracks, right? And it's like, I can't go to 12 things at once, right? So what we did for this year is we, with great intent, focused on one main stage, shorter sessions, so that the people that are up there are going to be more likely to want to get to the meat of the conversation than 45 minutes of motherhood and apple pie, which I've seen at my own events, right? So these are just lessons learned. We're trying to figure out ways around it. And the other thing is people want to engage more. They like, that's a passive activity, watching a panel, right? So we are designing workshops and roundtables where a roundtable is just a discussion amongst peers, and the insurers are going to have priority access to those seats. And so, we're hoping to drive lots of interesting conversations, whether it's about auto telematics or it's about some of the things going on with AI and the use cases around that. There's some good cloud conversations going. There's, an IoT workshop being run by Hartford Steam Boiler, who's our first global sponsor, which, by the way, now that we have all these communities all over the place, we can actually offer more value to higher level organizations as well, who want to support the multiple communities. Anyway, back to the symposium, we've got really strong content. Analysts, industry leading analysts are moderating a lot of these, and people who are experts in our industry. So that's the big thing, is the content, and constantly just trying to make it better. We're that event that's not aiming to be like an ITC Vegas, where there's 8,000 to 10,000 people. I'm happy to stay between 1,000 and 2,000 people. And it's enough. I believe in the importance of building deeper relationships. You mentioned the ski trip that David and I do. We've done two of them in January, actually, one in the US and one in Europe. And like, those are 10 to 20 people sometimes. We find that smaller is better in terms of quality of the experience, quality of the engagement. So, so those are just some of the big things we're doing this year. That's a little different. And I think anybody in the industry, not just insurance carrier folks, will find this year's program more intentionally designed for engagement.
The roundtables are that I always take to those. You see people who come away as like, I didn't know that person, and now I'm talking to them regularly. And I mean, we always say it's a relationship industry. I've seen so many great relationships come from people joining those roundtables. And I saw someone sit in like chairs in the periphery left behind when they converted the room, and just working on his laptop during a roundtable. I was like, why are you in this room? Like, you're missing so much, and it's also going to be distracting. Like, come sit, engage. That's 4, 6, whatever people that you wouldn't have had a reason to get close to, that could be really valuable, and you could provide value to going forward. And then go and do another one. I love the roundtables. And I will say, networking space. I have referenced what you had set up, and I say that without knowing if you're doing the same thing, but the space you had set up last year was markedly different from what I've seen elsewhere, and so kind of encouraging of people having those conversations. I've seen similar spaces, but they're roped off as VIPs. So, it's only for higher level sponsors who bring their folks in, which is fine. But then you miss, like, again, that moment of deeper interaction. And I saw with InsurTech Hartford Symposium that carried forward to the meals as well. Like, people were not just sitting with their own folks because the whole spirit was sort of like, let's talk to each other. People were sitting at tables where they didn't know each other. And I picked up and moved when one of the tables was fizzling out and everyone was starting with reintroductions again. That's the point of these things, is like, how do you build more network, more understanding, more engagement? So I give you a lot of credit for kind of the tone that was set at the symposium.
Well, thank you, because that is another aspect of the intentional design, is the way we lay out the floor plan. This year, we're actually keeping everything, zooming through the center of the room, which is that networking lounge, the big, beautiful, white leather couches and all that good little tables. And we really, every booth is facing off toward the center of it. The one main stage is there, and the startups are right next to it as well. So, some conferences, like, you have to find the startups, but you won't have a hard time finding them at our event, right? So we want to keep I call it an integrated experience, because basically every part of the conference, whether it's the networking, the content, the exhibit areas, it's all integrated into one big space. And that helps keep the energy. It helps keep the people in place. Some conferences, like, the content's over here and some of it's over there, and then down on the next floor is where the exhibit hall is. But no, we keep everything packed in this box so that we can keep the energy flowing and keep the connections happening. Learn, connect, unwind. Those are the three things that we tell people about our conference, because obviously we've talked about the learn and the connect parts through the programming and the networking and that stuff. But the selection of Mohegan Sun as a venue was also intentional, because it helps with that unwind part.
Yeah. That surprised me, I have to say, because I'd never been to an event there. I'd been to other casino-based events, obviously Vegas, and I was like cringing. I was like, oh, I'm just not up for the whole, like, you got to walk through the floor and all the smokers and it, like, all of it. This was total. I came back home and I was telling my wife, I'm like, it was so nice. Like, they did a really good job. The staff was lovely, but the way it was set up, you didn't have to carry your bag through the floor constantly. Like, it's exhausting at ITC last year, I will say, the constant back and forth through the casino floor. It just felt really different. So yeah, shocking if people haven't been to Mohegan Sun but you've been to Vegas or Atlantic City, like, this is a completely different experience. I had no idea.
And Mohegan tries to present themselves as an entertainment complex, not a casino. They happen to have casinos there. Just happen to be the second largest casino in the United States outside of Las Vegas. But the casinos are at the ends, right? Yeah. There's all this space in the middle around the shopping and the dining. And that's, the area, the areas where the business events are held, the hotels and the spas they have. Like, you can go there and spend 2 days there and actually never step foot in a casino.
Yeah. I only did because I had some time to kill, and I was like, well, I might as well see the whole floor plan. But yeah, I don't play my hand, like, insurance risk averse guy. Like, I just can't bring myself to gamble. But no, it was a nice venue. Stacey, before we go, where should people go? I mean, given we talked about Hartford, we talked about New England, Chicago, Atlanta. Does each one of them have their own site? Is there a single hub? Like, and the symposium as well? Where do people go to figure this stuff out, to see, like, how do I get involved in what's going on in my community?
Well, InsurTechHartford.com has always tried to be kind of a place that publishes information about not just our own events, but everybody's events. So obviously, in all the communities where I'm active, we're certainly having those. But it's a good place to find out about other conferences and big events going on around the industry. The symposium has its own website where you can learn more about the current plans around the agenda, see who some of the speakers are going to be. And we've announced our opening and keynote speakers. We've got EVP execs from Travelers and Nationwide. it's great to see the event kind of upscaling itself as well, that in that way. But definitely, the web, InsurTechHartford.com or InsurTech Hartford Symposium.com will get you to information about our events as well as the other communities.
Awesome. I will link to those two and the other communities as well, so people can get involved. But I do want to push that. Like, it's a moment for you to be part of a community and contribute, and not just sit back and say, someone else will have to carry the torch for me. But I appreciate you like catalyzing that in your backyard, but now expanding that out to other communities. So Stacey, thank you very much for what you've been doing and for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm glad we made it.
Thank you to Stacey for spending some time and sharing about what's going on there. We'll definitely have to have him back because he's in the center of so many conversations about what's going on in the industry and where things are heading and what we should care about and what matters. But this is, super timely. And obviously, I personally care about what they're building with InsurTech New England. I'm excited to be a part of that. So I wanted to get that out to all of you before the event on February 28th. I will link to that in the show notes. You can sign up for it and get your tickets for the symposium, which definitely go to. Great event. Lots of the people you want to be seeing and connecting with will be there. So it's worth it. And as I said, when I was talking to Stacey in the show, Mohegan Sun's actually really nice in April, even nicer. And lastly, think about your community and how you can get involved and help to push the industry forward. We all have things we wish were different about our space. Different doesn't just happen. It takes catalysts, it takes action, it takes people caring and giving of themselves and getting involved. And Stacey has set up some of that framework for people in the cities that are home to these regional InsurTech groups so far, but there's always more to come. So think about how you can raise your hand or spark something that leads others to say, yeah, I want to get involved too. So thank you, and we will see you back here next time. Take care.